Good morning, friends. Welcome. West Tennessee Dave here. It is 6:33 in the morning. I am live to you on Twitch and later coming to you on the VOD on YouTube or Twitch later, wherever you are, whenever you are. Good to see you all. Hope you are doing great today. Good morning, Spacey. Yes, it is Bible story time. It is Bible story time. Hope you are well today. Man, I was so tired last night. I went to sleep so early. I was like, I want to watch Spacey and see the study, but I was so tired. I had to crash early. Anyways, that's not why we're here to hear that story. So let's see, what are we here to hear? We're here to hear a Bible story. All right, we're going to read 1 Samuel 27 through 31. And let's give a recap of where we are just real quick. David and Saul are continuing to chase each other. Well, actually, Saul is continuing to chase David. David is trying to escape from Saul because he knows Saul wants to kill him. And he can't kill him back. He chooses not to kill him back because he doesn't have any word from God that he should be able to kill the anointed one that God anointed. And that's where we are. So, what is David going to do? We're going to find out today. So let's strap in, let's get ready, take a sip of water. All right. But David kept thinking to himself, someday Saul is going to get me. The best thing I can do is escape to the Philistines. Then Saul will stop hunting for me in Israelite territory, and I will finally be safe. So David took his 600 men and went over and joined Achish, son of Maoch, the king of Gath. David and his men and their families settled there in Achish and Gath. David brought his two wives along with him, Ahinoam from Jezreel and Abigail, Nabal's widow, from Carmel. Word soon reached Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he stopped hunting for him. One day David said to Achish, "If it is all right with you, we would rather live in one of the country towns instead of here in the royal city." So Achish gave him the town of Ziklag, which still belongs to the kings of Judah to this day. And they lived there among the Philistines for a year and 4 months. David and his men spent their time raiding the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites, people who had lived near Shur toward the land of Egypt since ancient times. David did not leave one person alive in the villages he attacked. He took the sheep, goats, cattle, donkey, camels, and clothing before returning home to see King Achish. "Where did you make your raid today?" Achish would ask. And David would reply, "Against the south of Judah, the Jerahmeelites and the Kenites." No one was left alive to come to Gath and tell where he had really been. This happened again and again while he was living among the Philistines. Achish believed David and thought to himself, "By now the people of Israel must hate him bitterly. Now he will have to stay here and serve me forever." About that time, the Philistines mustered their armies for another war with Israel. King Achish told David, "You and your men will be expected to join me in battle." "Very well," David agreed. "Now you will see for yourself what we can do." Then Achish told David, "I will make you my personal bodyguard for life." Meanwhile, Samuel had died, and all of Israel had mourned for him. He was buried in Ramah, his hometown, and Saul had banned from the land of Israel all mediums and those who consult the spirits of the dead. The Philistines set up their camp at Shunem, and Saul gathered all the army of Israel and camped at Gilboa. When Saul saw the vast Philistine army, he became frantic with fear. He asked the Lord what he should do, but the Lord refused to answer him, either by dreams or by sacred lots or by the prophets. Saul then said to his advisers, "Find a woman who is a medium, so I can go and ask her what to do." His advisers replied, "There is a medium at Endor." So Saul disguised himself by wearing ordinary clothing instead of his royal robes. Then he went to the woman's home at night, accompanied by two of his men. "I have to talk to a man who has died," he said. "Will you call up his spirit for me?" Are you trying to get me killed? The woman demanded. You know that Saul has outlawed all mediums and all who consult the spirits of the dead. Why are you setting a trap for me? But Saul took an oath in the name of the Lord and promised, as surely as the Lord lives, nothing bad will happen to you for doing this. Finally, the woman said, Well, whose spirit do you want me to call up? Call up Samuel, Saul replied. When the woman saw Samuel, she screamed, You've deceived me! You are Saul! Don't be afraid, the king told her. What do you see? I see a god coming up out of the earth, she said. What does he look like? Saul asked. He's an old man wrapped in a robe, she replied. Saul realized it was Samuel, and he fell to the ground before him. Why have you disturbed me by calling me back? Samuel asked Saul. Because I am in deep trouble, Saul replied. The Philistines are at war with me, and God has left me and won't reply by the prophets or dreams. So I have called for you to tell me what to do. But Samuel replied, Why ask me, since the Lord has left you and has become your enemy? The Lord has done just as he said he would. He has torn the kingdom from you and given it to your rival David. The Lord has done this to you today because you refused to carry out his fierce anger against the Amalekites. What's more, the Lord will hand you and the army of Israel over to the Philistines tomorrow, and you and your sons will be here with me. The Lord will bring down the entire army of Israel in defeat. Saul fell full length on the ground, paralyzed with fright because of Samuel's words. He was also faint with hunger, for he had eaten nothing all day and all night. When the woman saw how distraught he was, she said, Sir, I obeyed your command and risked my life. Now do what I say and let me give you a little something to eat so you can regain your strength for the trip back. But Saul refused to eat anything. Then his advisers joined the woman in urging him to eat, so he finally yielded and got up from the ground and sat on the couch. The woman had been fattening a calf, so she hurried out and killed it. She took some flour, kneaded it into dough, and baked unleavened bread. She brought the meal to Saul and his advisers, and they ate it. Then they went out into the night. The entire Philistine army now mobilized at Aphek, and the Israelites camped at the spring in Jezreel. As the Philistine rulers were leading out their troops in groups of hundreds and thousands, David and his men marched at the rear with King Achish. But the Philistine commanders demanded, What are these Hebrews doing here? And Achish told them, This is David, the servant of King Saul of Israel. He's been with me for years, and I've never found a single fault in him from the day he arrived until today. But the Philistine commanders were angry. Send him back to the town you've given him, they demanded. He can't go into the battle with us. What if he turns against us in battle and becomes our adversary? Is there any better way for him to reconcile himself with his master than by handing over our heads to him? Isn't this the same David about whom the women of Israel sing their dances? Saul has killed his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. So Achish finally summoned David and said to him, I swear by the Lord that you have been a trustworthy ally. I think you should go with me into battle, for I've never found a single flaw in you from the day you arrived until today. But the other Philistine rulers won't hear of it. Please, don't upset them, but go back quietly. What have I done to deserve this treatment? David demanded. What have you ever found in your servant that I can't go and fight the enemies of my lord the king? But Achish insisted, As far as I'm concerned, you're as perfect as an angel of God. But the Philistine commanders are afraid to have you with them in the battle. Now get up early in the morning and leave with your men as soon as it gets light. So David and his men headed back into the land of Philistines, while the Philistine army went on to Jezreel. 3 days later, when David and his men arrived home at their town of Ziklag, they found that the Amalekites had made a raid into the Negev and Ziklag. They had crushed Ziklag and burned it to the ground. They had carried off the women and children and everyone else, but without killing anyone. When David and his men saw the ruins and realized what had happened to their families, they wept until they could weep no more. David's two wives, Ahinoam from Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal from Carmel, were among those captured. David was now in great danger because all his men were very bitter about losing their sons and daughters, and they began to talk of stoning him. But David found strength in the Lord and his God. Then he said to Abiathar the priest, "Bring me the ephod." So Abiathar brought it. Then David asked the Lord, "Should I chase after this band of raiders? Will I catch them?" And the Lord told him, "Yes, go after them. You will surely recover everything that was taken from you." So David and his 600 men set out, and they came to the brook of Bezor. But 200 of the men were too exhausted to cross the brook. So David continued the pursuit with 400 men. Along the way, they found an Egyptian man in a field and brought him to David. They gave him some bread to eat and water to drink. They also gave him part of a fig cake and 2 clusters of raisins, for he hadn't had anything to eat or drink for 3 days and nights. Before long, his strength returned. "To whom do you belong, and where do you come from?" David asked him. "I am an Egyptian, the slave of an Amalekite," he replied. "My master abandoned me 3 days ago because I was sick. We were on our way back from raiding the Kerethites in the Negev, in the territory the territory of Judah, in the land of Caleb, and we had just burned Ziklag." "Will you lead me to this band of raiders?" David asked. The young man replied, "If you take an oath in God's name that you will not kill me or give me back to my master, then I will guide you to them." So he led David to them, and they found the Amalekites spread out across the fields, eating and drinking and dancing with joy because of the vast amount of plunder they had taken from the Philistines and the land of Judah. David and his men rushed in among them and slaughtered them throughout that night and the entire next day until evening. None of the Amalekites escaped, except 400 young men who fled on camels. David got back everything the Amalekites had taken, and he rescued his 2 wives. Nothing was missing, small or great, son or daughter, nor anything else that had been taken. David brought everything back. He also recovered all the flocks and herds his men drove, and his men drove them ahead of the other livestock. "This plunder belongs to David," they said. Then David returned to the brook Bezor and met up with the 200 men who had been left behind because they were too exhausted to go with him. They went out to meet David and his men, and David greeted them joyfully. But some evil troublemakers among David's men said, "They didn't go with us, so they can't have any of the plunder we recovered. Give them their wives and children and tell them to be gone." But David said, "No, my brothers, don't be selfish with what the Lord has given us. He has kept us safe and helped us defeat the band of raiders that attacked us. Who will listen when you talk like this? We share and share alike, those who go to battle and those who guard the equipment." From then on, David made this decree and a regulation for Israel, and it is still followed today. When he arrived at Ziklag, David sent part of the plunder to the elders of Judah who were his friends. "Here is a present for you, taken from the Lord's enemies," he said. The gifts were sent to the people of the following towns David had visited: Bethel, Ramoth Negev, Jatir, Arior, Shipmoth, Eshtimoa, Rakal, the towns of the Jerahmeelites, the towns of the Kenites, Hormah, Bora Ashan, Acta, Hebron, and all the other places David and his men had visited. Now the Philistines attacked Israel, and the men of Israel fled before them. Many were slaughtered on the slopes of Mount Gilboa. The Philistines closed in on Saul and his sons, and they killed 3 of his sons, Jonathan, Aminadab, and Malchishua. The fighting grew very fierce around Saul, and the Philistine archers caught up with him and wounded him severely. Saul groaned to his armor-bearer, "Take your sword and kill me before these pagan Philistines come to ruin me through and taunt and torture me." But his armor-bearer was afraid and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. When his armor-bearer realized that Saul was dead, he fell on his own sword and died beside the king. So Saul, his 3 sons, his armor-bearer, and his troops all died together that same day. When the Israelites on the other side of the Jezreel Valley and beyond the Jordan saw that the Israelite army had fled and that Saul and his 3 sons were dead, they abandoned their towns and fled. So the Philistines moved in and occupied their towns. The next day, when the Philistines went out to strip the dead, they found the bodies of Saul and his 3 sons on Mount Gilboa. So they cut off Saul's head and stripped off his armor-bearer. Then they proclaimed the good news of Saul's death in their pagan temple and to the people throughout the land of Philistia. They placed his armor in the temple of the Ashtoreth, and they fastened his body to the wall of the city of Bethshan. But when the people of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all their mighty warriors traveled through the night to Bethshan and took the bodies of Saul and his sons down from the wall. They brought them to Jabesh, where they burned the bodies. Then they took their bones and buried them beneath the tamarisk tree at Jabesh, and they fasted for 7 days. Okay, and that's the end of the story for today. So this is also the end of the book of the book of 1 Samuel. So Samuel had died in the reading the day before, and Samuel had always been the judge and the prophet that the king looked to, both Saul and David to some extent. He was the prophet around that time frame. And we heard today that Saul was not hearing back from all the other methodologies that were used because the Lord had basically said, I'm done with you. I'm done with you, King Saul. Even though he was the anointed one of the Lord, he still wasn't getting any data back from God anymore. And so the army is coming up, and Saul, for all of his faults, is still like trying to do some good things. Okay, he was not a perfect person. I mean, none of us are. He obviously had just this super vengeance for David, but once he found out David went to Philistine territory, he just was like, well, I'm not going to go into Philistine territory to go get him. So let Philistines take care of him, maybe. But he had gotten rid of the medians because that was against the law that was told way back in the day. Yes, that is correct, Spacey. He fell on his sword, meaning he took his sword, faced it towards himself, and jabbed himself with it. So yes, that is what happened. Taking his own life. So, but for the most part, he got rid of medians and spiritists. Like, this was against the rule. We weren't supposed to consult the dead in Jewish territory, so he banned them all. But once the regular ways of consulting with priests and consulting with the ephod and all those other things didn't work because he had killed the priests of the Lord in his anger, he had nothing to go to, and he's like, I've got to know what God says. He's kind of tired of maybe just doing everything himself, and he's like, well, even though I banned them and it's totally against the law, I've got to hear from God. And you know who heard from God all the time? Samuel. So let's bring him up from the dead. Let's figure out how to resurrect his spirit. That's what mediums can do. They can talk to dead people. Anyone know of any? Even though I got rid of them all, anyone know of any? Like, I mean, it's like he gets it and he doesn't get it. Like, I mean, I don't know. He's kind of in a rock and a hard place. The army of his enemy is marching against him, and what should you do? And you're not getting any data from God anymore. So, and Samuel's dead, and the mediums are all gone. Like, not that you should go consult them. It's against the rule to consult them. And so, anyways, he is somebody knows of one in Endor, so they go. We see this like, yeah, like think about it. Like, we're on Twitch here. Hey, I banned all the people that could tell us the answer, and they don't come around here anymore. Like, what? Of course, like, what's gonna happen? Like, I mean, that's not good, right? Like, and he should ban them. Like, you know, all the trolls, all these people that, yeah, he's lost his journey, he's lost his mind, and he makes some good decisions, but he makes a lot of bad decisions, right? And left to our own devices, that's what we'll do as well. Like, we might look at Saul and say, "Man, how did he get it so wrong?" But the mirror isn't that far off with Saul. The mirror is really close at hand, actually, looking at Saul's life. So he consults the mediums. Samuel's there, and Samuel's like, "Dude, I'm sorry to tell you this, but why did you bother me? God, God's not telling you because you didn't do what he said. Like, it was real simple. And guess what? You guys are all gonna die. Good luck. You're gonna see me soon enough." And he's not happy about his. He's not happy, right? I mean, if you go to a spiritist or like a palm reader or something like that, and they give you just vague information, you're just like, "Oh, I wasted my money." But like, when they say you're gonna die, like, that is not what you went there for. You didn't want to go to the spiritist to find bad news. And Samuel just delivers the bad news. And we see what happens. We see what happens at the end here. They go out. The fighting is bad. The whole army is fleeing. They're just a massive slaughter. The Philistines are killing them. David was going to be part of this raiding battle against Israel as well, because he had been part of Philistine territory for a while. Now, we see that there's some deception going on from David here. And he moved into Philistine territory. We don't see that God told him to do it, but we just see that he's like, "I got to get away from Saul. Like, I can't keep trying to evade him in Israelite territory. It's a small territory, and the king of Israel, who is Saul, who's on this super rampage, is threatening and killing anyone who doesn't report when David goes through their area." So basically, David's like, "I can't find any safety here." And obviously, the Philistines aren't going to go to King Saul and say, "Hey, we've got your enemy here." So he's like, "Let's just go to the enemy." And he basically goes on this deception plot of killing some of the other enemies of Israel that aren't Philistines now, and saying, "I'm killing people in the area of Israel." So this guy, King Achish, is like, "Dude, this guy's awesome. He's always been a good warrior. He's killing all these people." And it says he never left anyone. So he had to kill women and children. I mean, this can't be easy. Like, but he has to kill everyone so that nobody can report back his deception plan to King Achish. And so King Achish is finally he's mobilized with the Philistines to go after Israel. And now David's kind of actually in a very difficult spot, because he's going to have to, if he's going to keep up the charade, he's going to have to fight against Israel. And he's never actually done that. He's only said he has. And so he gets ready for the battle. And maybe this is God's sovereign grace and mercy over him in this moment. I mean, God anointed him as king, and he's if you can think of a place that your life looks so far different from what God has said, this is that moment for David. The king of Israel, Saul, has been chasing him and trying to kill him. And now he's living in enemy territory and about to go fight against the people he's supposed to be king over. I don't know if anything looks different from what the prophecy of God has said over your life to this moment. But David never gives up on God. So even if your life looks 180 degrees from your viewpoint of what you think God has said is going to be your life, just look at it right here in this moment of David. It looks the complete opposite. He looks like he's about to fight the people he's supposed to eventually rule over. That can't be the strategy. Anyways, he's a warrior, and the guy who's over him, he understands command and authority. He's like, you're going to be my bodyguard. You're going to do it. Like, I know that you're a good warrior. So Dave's like, all right, it's go time. It's go time. And, but the other Philistines rulers just say, no, it ain't happening, right? It ain't happening. And I guess that was probably God's sovereign grace. Not only that, during that time frame, his whole homeland, the town he's been living in, gets raided, and his wives and all the plunder get taken away. And you just see David's part in this. You see, like, it's still going bad for him right now. Everything's going bad, but he consults God, and God answers David. God answers David. So we know God is not done with David. He hasn't abandoned him, even if all the circumstances of your life look bad at the moment. David can't fight with the guy who's in charge. He has to go home. His town's been burned. His wives have been taken. All of his friends' wives and children are taken. I mean, it's not like everything looks terrible. Even when everything looks terrible in your life, can you have the heart like David to just say, what should I do, God? Without you, even if I lose everything in this world, I have you, God. And then you can tell me what to do. You can tell me how to get it back or just move on, right? I mean, maybe God would have said, just let it be, like they're gone. But he didn't. He said, yeah, you'll get him back. Go get him. So, and we just see this beautiful story of redemption. David gets all the people back. They come back. And you can see people's heart of like, well, we did the work, right? I mean, this whole concept that we did the work and you guys left behind because you were just exhausted. No, we're in this together. Community is so important. David realizes that. And he's like, guys, just because they were too exhausted and they had to stay back with some stuff, they're still part of us. It is really hard to keep your heart sometimes towards God. I know it personally. Like, it's just hard. Like, when things go really bad and you're on it seems like the downslide in this world, it is hard to keep your heart pure and honorable and trusting to God. Because it's easy to just slip into, well, God's allowing this to happen. And the answer to that is sometimes super complicated. Right? You can see this story of David here and look at it and say, wow, it is complicated. You can also look back at some of the other stories we've read. Look at when Moses first comes to Pharaoh and to Egypt after he had left and says, set my people free. And the workload of the people, because God hardens the heart of Pharaoh, the workload gets massive, and they stop giving them straw and mortar to help make the bricks. And they're like, but your quota doesn't go down. So sometimes in the interim, when you're getting closer to the victory at hand, all as they say, all hell is going to break loose. Everything is going to look like it's going terrible. And sometimes it has to, because the transition from one period to the next is violent. You have to overthrow all the things that are evil from one part of the kingdom to get the kingdom of light to shine forth. So there's going to be war that breaks out. There's going to be just absolute bloodbath for deception, discouragement, everything in your life. What's up, Wicked? Hi. Thank you for a blessing. Thank you for a blessing today, Wicked. I appreciate that. Blessings on you as well. So, in that, like, everything could be going absolutely sideways and backwards in your life, and all the hopes and dreams that you had might be like unraveling. And you might think, well, where is God in this? What is happening? But maybe it's still just in process, and we have to not give up hope in these last moments of really learning to trust God. We see that here in David's. And we see that in that story of Moses in Exodus. I mean, there were still 10 more plagues that have to happen. And some of these affected both the Israelites and the Egyptians, and some just affected the Egyptians back in those days. And we see this throughout. We see this constantly throughout the Judges, where things were good and then they fall off the cliff because they kind of just slack, right? And God wants us to trust Him. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. God wants us to trust Him and not be so circumstantial in our thinking towards Him. It's not always about how we envision it happening right now. David held on to the fact that God anointed him king, God loved him, and he just kept going back to God. We see a couple blemishes from David, but he quickly turns and repents when somebody calls him out. And so in the same way, I'm saying it to y'all, like, if your life is great, amazing, just hang out there. If it's in some turmoil, yeah, it's tough. These are tough places. Let's trust. God needs to tell us who invented working for your money. Right, so you know who that was? That's the original story that we talked about. It's the sin of Adam and Eve. We all were told to have something, but the curse that was given as a consequence of disobedience was you will have to work the land hard. It won't just produce. In the original part, God produced all the trees and all the things, and He gave everything we needed to us. But once we chose to go outside of the one boundary line He had for us, He only had one boundary line for the human race. One. Don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And when they did that, He came back, and His curse was, because you disobeyed me, you will have to work hard. And we all disobey God at times. We all do. Like, we're people. We just don't always get it. And we all want to, I think what we want to do is we want to expand our territories and expand our reach. And we think that having more and more options and opportunities is great for us. And I was just listening to a podcast about this, and there's this. Look at the world today. We have more opportunities and choices than ever before in life. Is that really good for us? The knowledge of good and evil just expands exponentially, and it is hard to keep up with knowledge. Right? Now we have AI doing things, and it's like the knowledge is just increasing at such a rapid pace. Such a rapid pace of life. And we might think, oh, that's great. That's amazing. Well, maybe, but I mean, us as finite human beings, it's just too much for us. It's just too much for us. And so sometimes, yes, it's a curse that we have to work hard for our money and all that stuff. But sometimes it's also a blessing. And it's a blessing to just learn to let go of every choice and every option in life. We can't keep up with every single person. We can't keep up with every single new fad. We can't keep up with every single new trend. We can't keep up with every single thing that's happening in the world. We would be better off to just manage our own little estates well and not always trying to expand the territory on our own premise. I think that's where Adam and Eve got it wrong. God gave them this beautiful garden to tend, to navigate life in. Just said, look, this one tree's off limits. That's it. That's it. Just don't do that, okay? And things will go well for you, right? And obviously, the deception of the enemy was, but God's holding out on you. God God holds out on us sometimes for our own good. Not because he doesn't want to give us everything. It's because we can't handle everything. He knows it. He's made us that way. We can't handle everything. Only he can. And so if we think that we should have everything, we'll find out we can't hold on to anything. Okay, I know that's kind of like off topic, but you asked questions, so let's go with that, right? Yes, Spacey won a trophy. You won 3 trophies. It's amazing. Like, that's great. That's great. That's incredible. Well done. Right? But it's been a long journey for Spacey. It's been a long journey. She had to work hard and study and change some of her tactics, and it's paying off, right? These things are paying off because you can't just do whatever you want all the time and get a trophy. You have to learn the systems that help you to say no. It's like, all right, I'm going to get better at these things. And to some extent you actually are limiting what you do because you have to say, no, I don't play all these hands anymore. That's better for me in my poker game. And when I play hands, I'll just play them better because I'll manage my game better in this moment. And I know how to play these hands and I know not to play these as much. And that is better for my game instead of trying to make sure I can figure out how to play every single combination of poker hands. There's too many combinations to play every single one. And there's too many different spots. It's like, right, the solver helps us learn to do these better. And Spacey has studied and done well. And so she finally got rewarded for it. Well done, Spacey. And we do the same thing. We do the same thing in life. So it's good to learn. But I think that as we learn, we actually do narrow down the scope of how we are trying to operate because we realize we can't operate everything. And David is seeing the same thing, right? And he basically just continues to say, "Hey, the scope, God, is what you're after. Things happen in this life, right? He might have pocket aces, but the board comes out 10-9-8 and he really doesn't have much of it there. And it's like, God, what now? What do I do? And he realizes, like, okay, sometimes we started with a good hand, but stuff goes wrong, and I have to navigate differently. And that's why David is successful, because he just keeps asking God questions. So let us keep being inquisitive, because here's the difference, and it's interesting that you bring it up, Wicked. The difference goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. Ask God the questions and get answers from him, or choose the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is answers without God? Do we choose the answer without God, which is the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Or do we go back to God with questions and say, let's go back to what God originally said. Let's find out what he's saying. He has all knowledge and wisdom, and it's not without him, it's with him. And now he's back to trolling. He's back to trolling the Bears. You know, he's pretty happy about the Lions and their schedule because they were bad last year, so they got a nice, easy schedule. So good for you. You know, things change. Sometimes you got to face a hard enemy, sometimes you got to face an easier enemy. Okay? You know, but we're all just there. We could just complain about it and say it's unfair, or we can move on. All right, so we're going to move on in the story too. Saul is dead. And you would think that this would be really good news for David. You would think this is going to be really good news for David. That Saul has finally been destroyed. And we had seen this before when David had the chance to kill him the last couple times. He's like, far be it from me, God's going to take him out, or he'll die of old age, or whatever's going to happen. It's not going to be my hand. And it hasn't been David's hand that Saul died here. So, in that case, let's see how David responds as we get back together on Tuesday. Let's see if David is happy about this or how else he could respond, because this is truly what sets people apart. And we've been talking about it. David is a man after God's own heart. David loves to impress God instead of people. David is not about the people and about making sure making sure that they think highly of him, where Saul was. So how is that going to play out in this strategy and then going forward? Because is he going to be the king? Is he not? Is it just easy and happy days that the kingdom is handed over to David? We're about to find out. So come back on Tuesday for that. Okay. Love you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your comments. I appreciate it. Have a great Sunday, great day on the Felts if you're playing. And yeah, I will hopefully be back for a session later. I do have a lot of things to do today, but I'm going to try to get in a late night session. So I will see you then. What's up, CMB? Good to see you. Hi, welcome. Thanks for being here. It's your first session with me. First Bible story session. Well, welcome. Welcome to the session. Good morning, CMB. It's great to see you. Yeah, thanks for just saying hello. I appreciate that. All right. Yeah, we'll be back we got streams the next 3 days, right? So I've got one later today, study stream on Monday, and the Bible story with how David responds on Tuesday morning. So come back to one of those. Love you guys. And thank you CMV for wanting to bless, or thank you Wicked for wanting to bless CMV. If God wills it, all the better. Thank you guys. All right, I'll talk to you soon.